And we're
Welcome
back.
back to what is this? Episode 9?
I think it's 10.
Is it 10? Well, if we count the first unreleased episode, that was the Phantom Menace episode that no one has quite heard except a select few.
If
Counting
we
that,
count
it's episode 10.
if we count the amount of times that we had to do last week's episode and the episode that we did and that just got halfway through and then crapped out, then I think we're on like 15.
I think we would have hit our milestone marker to start earning actual income per Spotify standards if we did count that last episode recording with the amount of times we had to get that
I think it would make sense.
recorded. Yeah. But I don't
Well,
think Spotify recognizes that. But before we get too far down the road, one of the individuals that has heard said episode that is under lock and key, stored away in a vault deep down underneath Mount Everest, because that probably won't see the light of day for at least a little bit of time, is Mr. Derek Seiler. Derek Seiler. He is our first guest on Thoughtify. So welcome to the podcast, good sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's quite an honor to be the first guest. I have to say that my agent, when he got back to me about coming on the show, uh, a lot of really, really good shows that he turned down. And then he told me that there was a $2 million check coming my way. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm booked up Wednesday at 7:45. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, what your agent didn't tell you was the actual form of currency that's coming in. It's in the form of monopoly money. So that'll be showing up in your mailbox within the next 12 business months. So
and
Hey,
guess
you just
what?
you
have
know
to,
what? You know, desperate times, we'll take anything we can get right now. But you know
There'll
what,
definitely be
guys?
more than one payment.
It definitely, yeah, there's gonna be charge on interest too on that monopoly money. So,
oh, shoot. Yep. Well, the interest can come out of Keegan's pocket. So he's,
well, that's what I thought. I mean, he's
yeah,
the sales guy, so
I
yeah.
feel like this sounds like a great deal. I think we should all move
I
forward.
I know he's got all the money. So,
Oh
Sounds,
man, so
sounds
much.
flawless for
but
Thoughtify.
but no, it's an honor, guys. Thanks for having me tonight, and I'm really excited to be here, and so all two listeners can hear my lovely voice.
Hey, man,
God,
plus
slow shot.
19. We have 21. We have 21.
21? Oh my
Yes.
Yeah.
gosh!
Hey man,
So
Not
y'all
we're in
like we're counting.
we're
Not
in the
like
y'all
double
times
digits.
that 2 by 10.
Hey
Well,
man,
Spotify actually counts for us, so technically we are counting. We look at the numbers pretty regularly,
we
and
do.
Yeah.
they are they're doing something. They're there.
Well,
They're going
the
up,
price
not
just went
down.
up to $4 million. So
Jeez. Well, I was just kidding. We do have 2 followers. We don't have 21.
Either way,
It's
this was
kind
a
of one
great
of those
episode.
things with the analytics. Like the more you look at it, you're like, maybe it'll keep changing. Same with the stock
hey,
market. The more I check the stocks that I'm invested in, surely it's going to go up. And it's the same thing with your dating app profiles. It's like the more I check it, it's like girls will notice. They'll for sure notice, but they never do. It's a hopeless romantic perspective and then a hopelessly optimistic, I would say. Hasn't
I
quite worked
gave
on
up
the
on dating
romantic side.
apps.
We're not getting down this road
hey,
tonight.
by the
Oh
way, what
man.
hey
Oh
that
geez, how did this
episode,
happen?
We're
hey
not
that
We're
doing
already
this
here.
tonight.
I was gonna say that episode, what was that one about?
Episode
Derek,
one, the one that
Yeah,
we
the
ended up
first one.
taking that we took down.
Yeah, what was that one about?
I don't recall, Your Honor.
Yeah,
I
no,
plead
I
I
don't
plead
either.
the
And
fifth.
you introduced me as one of the guys that heard it. I totally forgot about
Oh,
it.
you're right. I must have just been making up stories.
Yeah, I
Ignore
think you totally
everything up
were.
until now, audience.
I didn't listen to any episode that was,
You're right.
potentially removed.
It was probably in one of my dreams.
Yeah, I don't recall it.
That's good. That's the
it
way it
was a good
needs to be.
episode.
Until we just randomly pull it out one day and be like, post, and then see, watch. It'll be counterintuitive because some people got offended by that first episode and we repost
Really?
it. It'll become a wild success.
Well,
Just watch.
Here's one thing that I feel is very important. That yes, were there some people that were offended? 100%. And we were being pretty raw about the things we were talking about. But at the end of the day, like my gosh, have you listened to another podcast? Like, have you listened to Shane Gillis or someone? It's just like they say what actually comes to their mind. And if people get offended, then so be it. I understand that you
Right.
should have standards for yourself and whatever.
Oh,
Like
of
that's
course.
a 100%. But not gonna lie, I honestly a tiny bit regret taking it down just
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, there's nothing I said that I wouldn't logically stand by and argue against anyone who had a differing opinion. And also, it's so easy to just all of a sudden dive into how people are viewing what you're doing when you first start something versus staying true to what you're starting to do. And not that saying that you have to walk that road so hard that you just don't care about anything that happens, but in terms of when you feel the pressure to filter your thoughts because you don't want to offend people, man, I'm trying to stay as far away from that as possible and keep at least all the jokes that come into my head, I at least try to filter them at least a little bit. But
Only a slight bit.
Well,
for the
it's
most
funny.
part, everything comes out.
The light bulb went off just now, and I recall that first episode all of a sudden. And honestly, I have to say, you guys did a great job on that first episode. A lot of the things that y'all said, I would totally stand by. So it's just, everybody's going to walk and look at things a little bit differently. But I think that, I listened to it twice. And personally, I was kind of like, wait, why did anybody get upset over this? But it's just,
Losers.
yeah, it's just, and that's the thing about, the beauty about doing a podcast. I mean, it's not necessarily a fact. I mean, there's going to be arguments that are facts based, but this thing right here, it's like, hey, these are our personal experiences, and I'm sorry if you don't like them, but we're just being real.
Absolutely. Derek, that 2 million will be coming to you much sooner. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. And forget
Bought
the
and paid for.
interest. Forget the interest.
You're right. You're right.
Hey,
Keegan, you got that covered. But
100%.
well, we thought this week it would be very fitting to have Derek on. For those kind of Formula One racing fans, as we kind of ended last week's episode, we did tease a little bit about our experience down in Austin at Circuit of the Americas for the Formula One race. And Derek, Keegan, and I were all part of said experience, and we thought it would be very fitting considering Formula One was just at COTA a few days ago, i.e., this past weekend. It'd be fun to kind of have Derek on and have the trio that was actually down there experiencing the race on a podcast episode to kind of talk about that. What your thoughts were about the most recent race, Derek? I'm curious, and then just dive into our experience as a whole. 3 years ago. It's crazy to think it's been 3 years already.
It's nuts. I mean, I think that Keegan should talk about our Airbnb first.
It
Beautiful
was a good
place, right?
time.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah,
fair,
man,
it
it
looked
was,
amazing in the pictures.
yeah. Well, man, we could make this story last the entire podcast. So if that's what happens, then just stay tuned because it's a good story. But man, we had the opportunity to go to CODA. That's what I know it as, and I'm sure it's an acronym for something.
Circuit of
But
the Americas.
yes, CODA. And we were lucky enough to have access to some tickets that none of us would have been able to afford otherwise. And we were lucky enough to be with some friends, and we planned this whole cool trip. And Chase was in charge of the place we were staying, the Airbnb, and he fumbled the ball worse than myself in high school during
Let me
the
preface this
games.
first
I'm
before
kidding.
he
He
goes
didn't. He
any
didn't
further.
fumble the ball. It
We had
was
a good one
he had a
previously, like booked probably 6 months in advance, but that was the same year that snowpocalypse had blown through. And evidently, the house that we had booked ended up having some severe flooding damage due to water line breaks in the house. And they let us know literally a month before we were supposed to go down that, hey, we can't rent the house to you guys. Turns out it's not done being repaired yet. So, for anyone that's been down to Austin to experience the Formula One race, you have to book a place months and months and months and months in advance in order to get anything within semblance of driving distance without paying an arm and a leg. And having that ball dropped on us a month and a half before we were supposed to go down was, yeah, we were kind of backed into a corner on that one.
You
So,
see how much he's
You
talking
know,
to try to cover up the fact he fumbled the Airbnb?
at least I don't have the
well,
two.
I was waiting for that one to come.
I got bit by a mosquito today. It's right there. So get on my face.
That's proof.
It's probably a transgender mosquito.
Is there a problem with that?
We're not going to
I
get
was gonna
into
say,
that.
wouldn't mosquitoes still bite regardless?
They might be
According
attracted
to
to
the joke, I apparently they don't bite people they bite people with more testosterone. So that was where
That's
that
right.
came
No,
from.
I heard that joke for the first time on y'all's last episode. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's coming up
Well,
pretty
you know what?
regularly.
It's funny, before we make fun of Chase fumbling, I was actually so impressed the fact that we were able to like get a place that was remotely close to the track. Now, the type of place we got, that's a whole nother story.
And
Well,
just to clarify,
speak,
Chase didn't actually fumble. I was joking. He did a great job, and he got screwed over by the people who were, originally going to give us the Airbnb and had to do some last minute planning. So
Hey, stop it,
100% did
Keegan.
not
He he
fumble.
fu- he fumbled it 100%.
we're talking about racing, guys, not football. Duh. But yeah, continue with your story, Keegan, or kicking it off.
Yeah, I guess man, so we drive down Dakota, and Derek actually wasn't with us for the first night. He was coming in
He was.
night after. Or was he
I was
was it? No,
there.
no, no, you
Yeah,
left. You left for the first night, or went with your dad. Wasn't it the
right.
first night or the second night?
Yeah, so the first night I came down with my dad and my sister, and we
Yeah.
went and met up with one of his old racing buddies that he drove with back in the 80s, and then ended up engineering this guy for a while. And we had dinner, and then so funny story here. I'll tell this one. So, I'm having dinner with my dad and his old friend, and so my plan is to meet up with Chase Keegan, and Chase's dad was also there with us, and at the Airbnb. And so it's dinner went long. It's like 10 o'clock. And so I texted Chase and I said, "Hey, can you send me the address?" And he's like, "Yep, here it is. I'm going to bed and turning my phone off." And I'm like, "Sweet, man, I'm gonna break down and have nobody to call. That's awesome." Because we know Keegan's great at communication with a cell phone. Um,
Always.
so I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna call Keegan real quick just to let him know, hey, I may break down or get lost. So can you be on standby?" Phone rang twice, no answer. I was like, he totally declined my call. Sweet.
I did not
So,
decline your call.
so
Something,
yeah,
it was a bad reception.
It
you know
was
what?
bad
And
reception.
that is very true, especially at this place. So then I'm driving. I put it in my GPS, and I'm just like, my goodness, it's 45 minutes from where I was, and it's late. And so I'm driving down there, and I'm going west on 71, and or I'm sorry, no, sorry, east. Got my directions messed up there. Going east, and I'll go by the track, past the Austin airport, and I'm just like, I'm on this road forever, and it just gets to a point where I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, and it's just dark, no lights, nothing, and so then it just like my phone is like turn left. I'm just like, okay, so I'm following the little circle on my phone, and so I'm going down this gravel road for like 3 miles, and I'm like, where the heck am I? And then there was another left turn, so I make this other left, and there's like all these like branches, literally like on both sides of the road. I'm like literally driving on this gravel road, and there's branches,
Driving through
like
a
almost,
forest.
yeah, literally driving through a forest. I thought I was entering the Bat Cave, which, little background about me: Batman is the best superhero ever, and so I felt like for 2 seconds I was finally living my dream of being Batman. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm entering the Batcave right now. This is amazing. But then I was also freaking out at the same time. So that shows that I'm not Batman because I was a little scared. Um, so
Batman got scared.
I'm just like, where the heck am I? And so then like I'm just literally following my phone. There's just like this little maze to like get to this house. And I'm just like, and it says I'll be there in like 100 feet. It's almost midnight at this point. And so then I make this right turn and I see Chase's car there. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then I just see this house and I was just like, okay, well, here we are, I guess. And so I walk in and lights are off. I have my stuff. I have no idea like, where the rooms are. So I'm walking around, I have my flashlight on my phone on, trying to find it. And then I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm in a house with a bunch of guys that are fully loaded and ready to use if need be. And so I'm just like, this could be really interesting. So then I walk into one of the rooms, turn the lights on, and there's Keegan right there laying in bed. And I was just like, oh, sorry, Keegan. And then I go to the other room and then do the same thing. And there's Chase right there. And so then I ran upstairs, thankfully found a room where that was not occupied, went to sleep, and I sat there for a while and thought, wow, Derek, you did probably the worst thing you could have possibly done in a house where you had multiple guys that were alert and probably ready to take
Shoot on
action if
sight.
needed.
Just to
So,
give go on.
no, so needless to say, that's my story. I thought it was pretty funny. So, I'm glad I'm
No,
here, guys.
it's a great story, and just to give some additional context to this house, it was just imagine driving in a place where you don't see houses. There's just fields. And all of a sudden you take a left on a road that still has no houses. And you're just like, that's just a road. It looks like a country road surrounded by a bunch of brush and trees. And as you're going back, there's a house here, there's a house there. And you drive like 2 miles down this thing. And these houses, no offense to them, they're not very nice. You know, a lot of them are just obviously these people live very secluded, alone. And then you get back to the house that Chase was able to find when the other one fell through. And it literally looks like a house from a movie where everyone dies. Like it just is
Yeah.
way out of place. It's like a really nice, but kind of well put together house. Now, I will say we got in the house and it was not very well taken care of. It looks like they'd
Not at
never
all.
cleaned the grill. And
The
yeah,
floors had like dirt and grime, like you could feel it on the bottom of your feet.
yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
But the house
Yeah.
was scary as heck. It was like
Oh, so
legitimately
scary.
pulling up to that thing at midnight and yes, walking into the house with three people that had guns on the nightstand next to them and turning on their lights. Probably not, if
from
I
a
were to
dead
pick on
sleep.
like multiple choice, the best ways to survive. But at least there wasn't a murderer that tried to kill all of us. I
True.
thought there was
Derek
going
is
to be.
still here, everybody. We'll
Hey, you
can't
know
confirm.
what, guys? I thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you,
I
Happy
because
to
probably
it's
would
help.
very
end up like shooting
possible.
my own foot.
It's very possible 3 years, has gone by, and y'all could be on this podcast like, wow, let's not bring up that time we went to Dakota. Or you guys may be sitting here like, yeah, let's talk about it. That was a good night.
It was a fantastic night. And then what was it? Was it the next day? We'll dive into the actual racing stuff here in a second, but was it when we were going in that first night? No, it was when we were coming, either leaving or coming back the next day for day 2 of Coda. And remember the old guy that was just
Yeah.
standing in his
Oh
like
yeah,
dirt
Straight out of a
driveway
horror
off
movie.
the trail without a shirt on, just
and he was
like
waving at
staring at
us.
us? No, he
Yeah.
didn't even wave, I don't think. He
He didn't
just
wait,
like
Oh,
wasn't
I
it? He
thought he
was just
did.
looking at us very meanly, like
he
what are
just
y'all doing here?
like he stared literally and turned his head slowly as we were driving by. It's like,
Yes.
He
and
probably
he was
does
No,
the
that.
house that was right next to the house that we were renting.
oh yeah, no, I totally remember that. I mean, I'm surprised that guy hasn't haunted me in my nightmares,
Yeah.
honestly.
It was just like he's not used to
That was
seeing many,
scary.
many visitors
But
out there,
you know
probably.
what? After that, after seeing that guy, we ended up finding like one of the coolest breakfast spots I've ever been to.
Oh, literally one of the best.
Yeah,
I don't like breakfast food as is, but like that was dang good.
that was amazing.
Gosh. And
And
it was
what was,
literally just a
remind me,
hole
what
in the
was the
wall.
concept behind it again?
So the waiters and waitresses that worked there, the whole restaurant was started as like a nonprofit in a way and was giving
That's right.
opportunities to former, users of abuse or drug abusers, alcohol abusers that are recovering addicts basically to go have a job, but then also as part of some cool therapy, as they would serve your table, they would ask, be like, "Hey, do you want to hear my story?" And they would tell you their entire testimony and all that stuff. And the cool thing was, you don't pay for the food; it's a complete donation basis. So
That's
as
right.
the people tell the stories, you give whatever you feel led to give to the
You definitely
place.
don't go in there and not pay for the food.
Oh yeah,
You
if you
imagine,
do, if you
Just
do.
yeah,
the person
you
goes in and be like,
imagine
it's
people
free? No
doing that.
way. Thanks for the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're one of those people, that's horrible.
You'd have
But
to
Could
be
you
a horrible
imagine
person.
that though? Like, who
They
sadly,
would
I
do
feel
explain it
like
to
I
that?
you.
could in today's time.
Oh, someone's definitely done it,
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
100%.
sure. 100%.
But at the same time, the whole point of it is them serving other people and them sharing their experience and them working for something. I don't know if it was a nonprofit or I think it was actually part of the rehab. It was like a
Yeah.
program that they had. But regardless, it was just, man, I don't know about what going through rehab does to make you make good breakfast food, but hot dang,
Holy cow.
they
No,
made
that was
some.
good. I mean, I remember we went there Sunday too, didn't we?
Yeah, we went there both
Yeah,
days, or both
both
mornings we were
days,
there.
and it was so worth it. It was right near the haunted house.
Yep. Right off of what was it? Highway 51 in
You know what we
Smithville,
should do
Texas,
for a Halloween one year? We should go stay at that Airbnb
and go to that breakfast spot.
and go to
I
that
think that would
breakfast
just be a
spot.
good time.
That'd be
Yep,
fantastic. I'll look
agreed.
it up. I'll try to find it
I
just
might
for
go
you.
to
See,
rehab just so I can get better at breakfast.
yeah, I've had your breakfast before.
Hey, it's not bad, but could always be
No,
better.
it could be better, but
What did
it
I
was
ever make
okay.
you for breakfast? Don't bring up
Down
our
in
past on
comfort.
this podcast.
Yeah, you made me some eggs and comfort, bro.
Did I? Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
They
You
they're
were
want to
good.
good.
They
know
were
what
good.
he could get way better at though?
Oh, making a steak for sure.
Making the steaks, man. Oh
Yeah,
my
I tell you
gosh.
what.
Always a
Jeez.
student, always learning. I love
But
cooking
yeah,
steaks. I'm
so
actually going to do that after this.
nice. Backtracking a little bit regarding more of the racing side. So House was interesting in its own right, had its own story. But the first day I remember getting down to free practice 1 and 2 on Friday.
We'll
That's
kind of
where we
explain what that is for people who are not familiar with racing. And this is F1, like the
it's
little
NASCAR.
it's
Shout
NASCAR.
out to
They
Sylvie.
turn left every time. But no, it's
Nice.
if you don't know what F1 is, just type that in your browser and you'll figure it out.
Yes.
But
It's not
explain
the
what that
key on your
was.
computer either.
It is one of them, but it's not what we're
Yes.
talking about.
But basically, majority of the time, the race weekend, it's a 3 day weekend. Friday is consisting of free practice 1 and 2. We're not going to dive into the sprint racing and
What's the point of
qualifying.
the practice though?
Basically, you're tuning your car to be as fast as possible when it comes to qualifying. And then once you go through qualifying, that determines the placement of where you start for the race on Sunday. And then it gets to a point basically free practice 1, 2, 3. You're just tuning your car as much as possible, testing all the different tires to see what's what, making sure your car package for that weekend is exactly where it needs to be to go to the fastest it possibly can. Qualifying or free practice 3 and qualifying is on Saturday. So qualifying broken out into 3 different rounds basically ultimately just determines what your starting position is on the track for the race on Sunday. And then once places are figured out and set, then the race is on Sunday. So quick kind of dummies version of the race weekend breakdown. That's that. So 3 practice sessions, qualifying, and then the race. So we were able to make it down on Friday in time, or maybe like halfway through free practice 1, if I'm
Yeah, we didn't
remembering
go we
correctly.
didn't go for the first one.
Just because trying to get into that track traffic wise was
Oh
a
my gosh.
nightmare for
Yeah,
literally every time. I mean, throughout
that
the
was the
entire
worst.
weekend was a nightmare. But the cool thing was, I remember when we finally parked and figured out where the heck we were supposed to go, because we were walking around, wandering around for maybe an hour trying to figure out where the heck our seats are. But as we finally figured it out, we were going, and then all of a sudden, there's this moped that drives by with this dude driving it. And then all of a sudden, there's a guy in a race suit and a helmet on the back. And we were hearing over the track speakers, like, Fernando Alonso, his car broke down, whatever, on the side of the track. So as that's happening, this dude on the moped picked Fernando Alonso up to take him from his car back to the pits. And he just so happened to drive literally 15 feet away from us. As we were looking over, I was like, no kidding. That's one of the best Formula One drivers in the world. Literally 15 feet away from us on the back of a moped getting taken back to the pits. And I texted Derek right after because that's his favorite driver. And I was like, bro, guess who we just saw?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
naturally, I was with my dad at that time, and I remember getting that text from Chase. I was just like, just figures. Y'all would literally be right in front of Fernando, and I've been a Fernando Alonso fan since like 2007. So I mean, I've just a little history on him. I'm sure Chase will talk about his guy here in a second, but
Lewis
he's pretty
Hamilton.
much he's yes, that's his favorite, and he actually has a Lewis Hamilton shirt, believe it or not. So he's a big fan.
Just
Um,
prepping for when Max bounces.
but anyway, Fernando, like he's been in Formula One since 2001, and so he's literally drove for like 5 or 6 different teams. And so I've had, I basically, if I look in my closet, I've got his shirt from 2007 at McLaren, 2008 and 9 at Renault, and then his Ferrari days, and then he came back in 2021 to Alpine. That was the year we went to the race. So that was his first year back from a 3-year break. Or no, he was off for 2 years, 2019, 2020, and then now he's with Aston Martin. So I've pretty much have to buy a new team shirt every couple years. But I think Fernando's staying put at Aston for a while. So
Yep, they're definitely set up for the future.
seems like that they're doing all the right things, and so yeah, he's one of the greatest drivers of all time. Just he's made a lot of moves that at the time looked really really good, but unfortunately didn't pan out the way that he had hoped for them to. But looks like now with Aston Martin, they're really building that team up. They've got deep pockets with Lawrence Stroll, and now they've taken Adrian Newey away from Red Bull. Sorry, Chase. And so they've got the best engineer in the history of Formula One building his cars now. So I think in the next couple of years you'll see Fernando win. But I'm getting totally sidetracked. That was a great, I mean, that was a really cool thing right there. When just knowing that they got to see Fernando and be in the presence of somebody just incredible. So if I was in the presence of the best Formula One driver, I'd be pretty pumped too. So
And I yelled at him and said, "Go, Lewis
Yeah.
Hamilton, you suck." Just kidding.
yeah,
I did
they're
not.
they're big buddies too. So he
Yeah,
probably liked that.
they hate each other.
And
Um,
we were totally not in the presence. We glanced at him as he drove by, so
we
it
felt
wasn't as
remnants of his
glorious.
presence driving by.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say you had to feel something. I
I
mean,
was like,
Not
that's
to
"Oh,
that's that's a significant thing right there.
let's just say Fernando doesn't remember it like we do.
I'm
funny." I
sure
hear
he's
him
like,
talk about us all the time.
yeah, no, all the time on his Instagram story the other day. He's like, yeah, these two guys at Coda, I just remember them, and I think they got a podcast now.
He's a subscriber. We're having
Yep,
him on next
He
week.
was number
yeah,
21.
man.
He
So you
was
go from me to
number one.
Fernando.
Say it again.
Yeah,
So say you're gonna go from me to Fernando next week.
he's got some big shoes to fill in the wake
I mean,
of
I was gonna say
Sir Barrett.
anybody else, it's going downhill, but that one, that's pretty good, guys.
We figured you'd like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so once we felt remnants of his grace's presence, that is Fernando Alonso driving by on a moped, finally got to our seats, and these seats were awesome. We were sitting right at turn 20. So the last turn on the racetrack before the straight goes on for the start finish line. And we just hung out. There's music bumping, drinks, food, shade, because it was hot that weekend. Yeah, and it was just a dang good time. So Friday was fun. Saturday, just as cool. Found some really cool restaurants outside of that. And then yeah, the race fast forwarding to Sunday. Spoiler, Max ended up winning. And that was the first time Max Verstappen, who races for Red Bull Racing, i.e., the best team of all time and the best driver ever, won at Coda, dethroning Lewis Hamilton, which was for the most part, Mercedes dominated track for a good bit of time. So that was really, really cool. And
Hey, so I'm gonna backtrack real quick. What was the name of that burger place we went to on Saturday after qualifying?
thing was called
Don't remember.
Roadhouse,
Yeah, not Texas Roadhouse, just Roadhouse.
just straight up Roadhouse.
That was a good place.
Oh yeah. The amount of food, or just the food that we had down in Austin, was just dang good. It was so good.
I'm still sorry we never fired that grill up.
Yeah. I don't think we would have wanted to touch that though.
No, I
But
mean, you turn it on, you get it hot.
Keegan,
Just gotta
if you made a
scrape it
steak,
off.
I was gonna say, Keegan, if you made a steak on that grill, I still would have had it.
There's nothing wrong with a dirty grill. It's just the fact that you have to clean it. It's the
I,
annoying part. It's like a
I
rude
would
thing to
still
do
eat
to
this.
someone.
I
You
would
just all
still
you
eat
gotta
your.
do is turn it on, get it hot, scrape it off. It's gonna be the same it was as, but I mean, yeah, I wish we would have anywhere I am, I love cooking steak or, doing something. And, you know, I don't I don't think we kind of knew what we were getting into at the house, so we didn't really have full plans to utilize it to its fullest extent. And then a lot of the stuff at the house was just subpar in terms of the way it was marketed. But
Yep.
it was still a really good time. It was a great place to stay. And I mean, the pavilion was just, oh man, it's one of those experiences that once you have that, you're just like, I don't want to go back unless it's that. even
Right.
though that's probably not going to happen until some major moves happen in life. But man, just you're right on the turn. You've got the shade, all the drinks were free. And of course, everyone in there is an interesting person. You end up talking to all these different people that are from every walk of life. F1 is like a world sport, so everyone, and especially European countries, love it. And most people there were like some super rich person or something like that. So there's just a lot of crazy cool people to meet. We had a really good time together, and it was an experience that you just got to be thankful you had it, because to recreate that would be a pretty hard thing.
Yeah. Well, what was crazy, the turn 20 pavilion where we were sitting. I don't know if I told you this, Keegan, but this past weekend when Coda happened, that whole pavilion tented area wasn't
Was
even
moved.
there.
Yeah, you guys,
Like,
I heard you and your dad talking about that.
yeah. I don't know if they moved it to some other part of the track, but it was kind of crazy to think, dang, we were there 3 years ago and they didn't even want to set anything up there. Feel like, I mean, that was one of the cooler, seats or positions to be able to see,
Oh,
right
trust
at
me,
the
wherever they put
pit
it,
lane
it
entry.
was it was because they thought it was like going to be more money and better though,
Oh, for sure.
because
Yeah,
so I'm
I
sure
think they
whoever's in
just
that
they
one
did.
today, gone.
I was gonna say I think they didn't have it there just because they knew we weren't gonna be there.
it's true. They're just like, it's not worth it. It's
It's
costing us
like
too much.
it's not
The
even
life
worth
of
it.
the party was gone.
If those three aren't there, then we're moving it.
Yep. Maybe we need to go.
Exactly. Yep. I think
But
next year, boys.
well, I was gonna say, speaking of Coda, Derek had the opportunity to go down this past weekend on Friday to experience a little bit of Formula One action.
How's the
Yeah.
traffic?
Oh my gosh, man. It was well, first of all, I mean, it was a great day. It was kind of a whirlwind trip. Me and my parents, we were just kind of like, you know what, let's go down for Friday. And so, the weekend, as Chase mentioned, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we're not going to get in the whole sprint thing. But on Friday, they did have qualifying for the sprint race. You can Google sprint racing Formula One. You'll learn all about it. That's probably a topic for another episode regarding sprint races and
Well,
our
give the cliff
opinions of that.
notes. Just give the
Cliff
cliff notes of what
Notes,
it is.
yeah, Cliff Notes basically is so what, Chase, probably what, 2021 they introduced sprint races, and it used to be a very select like few tracks that would have them. I only think like two or three had them the first couple of years, but last year and this year there's a lot of sprint races. And so what a sprint race is on, I'll just go ahead and explain it. On a Friday now, they do, instead of having three practice sessions, normally on a normal race weekend, it's practice 1 and 2 Friday, practice 3 Saturday before qualifying, as Chase mentioned earlier. But on a sprint weekend, you only have one practice session, which I think limits teams a lot because, back in the day, these guys were testing all the time. They had dedicated weekends where they would just test, and that was during the season. And so, because of cost restrictions and trying to lower the budget of these teams down, because I mean, there was a time where these teams were spending 500, $600 million a year just on their Formula One program, and so now they've capped at what, Chase, at like 150.
I
I
think
think
so.
that's about I think that's about what it is. And so, as part of capping, the cost of just, being in Formula One, they've eliminated all testing throughout the season. So really those practice sessions are the only opportunity these teams have to try out, if they're bringing new parts, bringing upgrades, or if they're, like Chase said, trying to optimize their setup for qualifying in the race. So really, I mean, the sprints, they're exciting. Like there's some cool moments in them. Basically, it's a shortened race. There's nobody pits. You put on one set of tires. It's about, what
It's
I think
a third of the normal length of a
yeah,
race.
it's about the third. So there was like 18 laps, I think, at the sprint at Coda this past weekend. So anyway, they on this particular weekend, they've made Coda the last 2 years a sprint weekend. So you get one practice and then you have sprint qualifying at 4:30. That's what they did it this past weekend. And then the next day you have the sprint race at 1 on Saturday, and then they qualify for the actual race. So really it just eliminates those three. You get one practice session for an hour. That's it. So But anyway, where I was going with all this is, so my folks and I, we decided to go take a day trip down there, just to, say that we experienced Formula One weekend in Austin in 2024, because the tickets were just outrageous for the whole weekend. I mean, it's really turned into quite the event. I mean, they had Eminem performed Saturday, and then
Wow.
Sting performed Friday night, and so we drove down, got there in our seats right as practice started. So it was kind of like deja vu from 2021 a little bit, and unfortunately did not get to be super close to Alonso in his presence. But I went and looked back at my videos that I filmed during the day, and I was like, wow, like 95% of it was just Alonso driving by. So big surprise, I know, but anyway, so we went to practice, excuse me, and then we just kind of hung out and then watched sprint qualifying. And I tell you what, Keegan, to answer your question, the traffic, bro, like it was unbelievable. I mean, we went to go get some food, and we came back to the track to go watch Sting. He was supposed to come on at 7:45. And I think that was the one time. I mean, we've gone to concerts together. We know when they're like, "Hey, so and so is coming out at 7:45." That really means they're going to come,
Yeah.
start performing about 8:45, 9 o'clock. And so that's what we kind of, that's what we were betting on. And so we went to go get some food, and we got back to the track. I had the Apple CarPlay going, and the directions on the screen basically said it was going to take an hour to go 1.2 miles because of how bad the traffic was. So, I don't think that they ever anticipated Formula One becoming so big in the United States to where, I mean, you guys probably remember it's kind of, well, the track is built in kind of an interesting location because a lot of the roads are 2-lane roads. So they just don't have the infrastructure right now to really support how many people are showing up for Grand Prix weekend. So, but other than the traffic, it was a great day. We had a blast, even though it was just Friday. Just growing up at the track with my dad, because my dad's been involved in racing in multiple capacities since, he was 10 years old, I think, 10 or 11. And so, he's been both on the driving side and on the business side. So, any chance I get to go to a F1 race is just, even if it's just for a day, like I'm up for it. So, we had a blast, and we didn't even dare look at hotels because it was so late in the game when we decided to go. And like, I guess I could have called Chase and had him book us an Airbnb, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to risk that again. So we just decided to make it a day trip. Got home late, but no, it was totally worth it. And also UT and Georgia were playing, which turned out to be a terrible game.
Terrible.
And so there's no way that we would have gotten a decent hotel for a decent price. But no, it was a blast. I really enjoyed being there, and I look forward to hopefully we can, the three of us can go down and relive 2021 again and kind of repeat that.
Absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun. Whatever, even if that's, obviously not going the entire weekend, just doing a day, like a Friday, doing
Yeah.
what you did. Just
Well, and I'll
going
tell you
down to
guys that.
experience it and
Yeah, I'll tell you guys this. Like, I mean, I couldn't believe how many people were there on a Friday. Like just in those 3 years, it's gotten even bigger. Like, I
gosh.
mean, I know there was a lot when we were there that Friday, but
Yeah.
I mean, it almost looked like it did on Sunday. I don't think it wasn't nearly as bad as Sunday, but it kind of felt that way. Like when I mean Sunday from when we were there.
Yeah.
So it just in 3 years, the sport it's just taken off. And even my dad, who's been watching racing, like I said, forever. I mean, he told me in the car driving home, he goes, I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that Formula One would be this big in the United States.
I
Hey,
So,
don't
he's
and
just
understand
glad to
why
survive.
you wouldn't.
yeah,
And it's
well,
something to go on.
no, I was just gonna say, Keegan, I think the reason was it just never really was, it was never really advertised in the US for many years because it's such a European sport. And, historically, if you look at the stats, I think Formula One and soccer are the most watched sports in the world. I could be wrong. I always like a good fact check, but I know it's always been historically one of the top watched sports in the world, but it's just never been big in the United States. And then once Drive to Survive hit Netflix, I mean, that just changed everything right there. So, we have a lot of really, really new fans, and it's fun for me now as somebody that, grew up watching Formula One. I mean, I remember, being a little kid, being 7, 8 years old, watching races early in the morning with my dad, watching Michael Schumacher win races for Ferrari. So, I mean, for me, it's really cool now that I actually have people that I can talk F1 with. And, I never had that. Like growing up, it's like, oh, what's Formula One? I have no idea what that is. And but now it's just like, oh, you're an F1 fan, and so that's pretty cool. Now I can actually have a conversation with people about F1.
Yep, and it's all thanks to Derek that I like Formula One. He'd been
Hey, you know what?
he'd been working on me for a while, and it
I
finally
worked on him for a while. I think Drive to Survive got you over the hump.
it did. It
But
helped.
I definitely was hyping it up to you there
Oh yeah.
before Drive to Survive became all the talk.
Yep, you sure did. It was what was it? Yeah, you were initially telling me like, dude, you need to watch F1. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay. And then you're like,
yeah,
dude, at least watch the show. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it. I was like,
yeah.
okay. And then
Well,
after
and then Chase tells me that he likes Lewis Hamilton. So, for one of his birthdays, I get him a
for
Mercedes
literally a
shirt
week, might I
for
add.
like a week. And then I
Not
get a
even.
text from him. It's even worse. And he's like, hey, I know who my favorite driver is now. I was like, oh, who is it? He's like, Max Verstappen. I was like, oh, no.
Hey, at least give me this. I didn't jump on the bandwagon to cheer for a 7-time world champion that had won already. I jumped on the Max train before he ever became world champion.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
That's what I'm
No, you
talking
know
about.
what? I totally understand. I mean, Max is phenomenal. I mean, he's one of those guys where it's just like, there's a reason that he started driving in Formula One at 17. So,
Yeah.
the dude, he's incredible. I mean, him and, I put him and Alonso, they're kind of like in a different category. It's funny. So I actually listened to a podcast today. It's called F1 Beyond the Grid. Chase, I'm sure you've listened to it before, but they actually had Alonso on yesterday because his 400th Grand Prix is this weekend in Mexico. And
Wow.
and so anyway, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's funny. He said that he thought that his last contract that he signed was in 2007 when he went to McLaren the first time, and he thought that by 2009 he would have been retired and starting a family and all that. And he's like, here I am, 400 races. So, and he's even saying now that Adrian knew he's coming on board that he's probably going to race. He's got 2 more years on his contract, but he even said, hey, after 2026, I want to see how I feel. So I'm thinking that he's probably going to be around a little bit longer. So be crazy to see what that number gets to. But what's funny is they did kind of a rapid fire with him. And at the end, they asked him, they're like, if you had a podcast, who'd be your first guest? And he said, Max Verstappen.
Nice.
So it's pretty funny, those two. You can tell that there's just a huge amount of respect between those two. So I hope we get to see them be teammates at some point, whether that's F1 or like in sports cars or something. That'd be
In Le
really cool.
Mans. They had
Yeah, be
talked
at
for the
Le Mans.
longest time about doing a teaming up or whatever after they both retire to race
Right.
on the same team for Le Mans, which would
Be
be,
Fernando, Max, and Yoss, right?
yep. They'd probably win by like I don't know, half a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, exactly. No, they'd do the 24 hours and 12 hours. They'd be so fast.
Gosh, that'd be insane.
It'd
I
be
bet all three
nuts.
of us could beat him. What do you think? You
Oh,
guys
for
want to
sure.
team up?
Let's do
Hop in my truck. We'll take him on.
it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I could
Or no, we'll take Keegan's car because it has sport mode.
That's right. He can
that's what
shift too.
no, I can't. I mean, there's
Oh,
paddle
you can't?
shifters, but
You're
I
supposed to
was gonna
go
say you
with
got
it.
paddles. No, that's what you got. Paddle shifters. It's like F1, bro.
Yeah, that's how they do it
That's how they
that's
do
how they
it.
train Toyota Avalons.
in
Yeah,
sport mode.
It's
exactly.
the closest thing to a F1 car you're gonna get legally, so get out there. Be dangerous.
Ferraris aren't
That's
even
true.
close. Lambos aren't even close. Bugattis aren't close.
Hey, Toyota used to be an F1.
That's right.
Yeah.
Aren't they
When did they
coming
stop?
back? No, that's Honda. Honda's coming back.
Honda's coming back. They stopped, I think, 2009. So it's been a while. But yeah, no, they were there.
Keegan,
Were they
time to
good?
sign some contracts. Bring them back.
Eh, they had their moments, but they never quite got to the level they wanted to get to, and they were spending a lot of money. But I mean, they might come back at some point.
I
Well, I
just
mean,
can't even go ahead.
I was just gonna say they probably got the money too, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, man, I don't. That sport is addicting. I mean, I'm not massively involved in it. I enjoy watching on the sidelines, kind of when you guys get passionate about it. But I mean, we've had so many other types of. We have NASCAR, we have dirt racing, we have dirt bike. I mean, man, it just.
IndyCar.
I don't see how anyone didn't jump on that sooner and be like, whoever does this, whoever has the capital to bring F1 to the US is going to be sitting on $1 billion a year gold mine just
At
Right.
because
least.
it's just not only is it another thing for people to bet on, to be interested in, to follow, but it has so much history to it already that is like ingrained into each of the teams, and there's so much lore, and there's all these crazy things that have happened between teams and teams that were supposed to win that didn't, teams that, all over the years that it's been. And it's just, man, I wish I could be part of the family. Or if they have any daughters that are in their
Yeah.
25 to 35, 36, 37, hey, whatever it is, I'll marry into that family.
So we're going to talk about dating now.
Somehow it's coming back there, but no.
Well,
Recall.
so I'll keep it in the F1. I mean, what's crazy about F1 now is we got 3 races in the US,
Yeah.
and just what, a few years ago. Well, I say a few, it's been since 2011, but, so that was a while ago. We had zero.
Yep.
And, just in 12, 13 years, we've got three. So,
I mean, just in the last couple years, it was just Coda. I
right,
mean, within the
exactly.
last three, now we have Miami, now we have Vegas, which
Yeah.
is
When was
actually coming up.
I think Miami was 22. Yeah, that was the first
Yep.
year. So when we
Yep.
went just 3 years ago, it was just Coda. That was it.
Yep. And now we're
So
we're starting to branch out.
yeah, yeah. So and I mean, and I think too, you're seeing kind of a trickle down effect with the popularity of Formula One because like look at IndyCar. Like now they're hyping up this big race in Dallas here in
Oh yeah.
2026, where they've teamed up with the Cowboys and the Rangers, and to do a race here in Arlington. So I mean, I can't help but think that Formula One and its popularity had something to do with that race coming about. So
Absolutely. I think especially Jerry was sitting there seeing the amount of money that Formula One's taken in. And he's
right,
and especially too, I mean, with IndyCar formerly racing in Dallas, they don't now, ever since they took away the Texas Motor Speedway race. Because
I
not
was
that
not
many
sorry to see that
people,
race go.
yeah, just because not many people want to see cars go around and around and around in an oval for, 150, 200 laps or whatever. They
Right.
want to see actual street circuits. And I think Jerry and the Cowboys and the Rangers seeing that opportunity, they're jumping on that. It's going to be
Yeah.
so cool, and we will all have to go when that race happens in 26. But just to see IndyCar forming a street track around the ballpark and AT&T Stadium, I mean, that is going to be so cool to see. It looks
Yeah,
like a
and if you
fast
look,
track too.
yeah, and if you look at the video on YouTube, I mean that track is going to be really cool. So
Really fast.
it's going to be really fast. So I can't wait for 2026 to go to that race. And you
Heck
know
yeah.
what? I'm glad. One of the things I'm glad they did was they decided to make the race in March. So
Yeah.
hope hopefully it's not one of those July days in March. Hopefully it's more like
uh,
a March day in March.
yeah. And just thinking about that, like how much we would complain going to a race that's like hot. Think about the dudes in the cars
Oh yeah.
with full race suits, helmets.
I don't
I
know. When you're feeling adrenaline and doing something you love, you don't feel the same type of heat. They're
I
definitely suffering
Well,
100%. Is it hard? 100%. But
well,
how many times have you fallen over or something like that and you're freaking out, you're in the moment, and then all of a sudden you realize you have a cut. And the entire time you've been touching the cut and whatnot, it's the same with stuff like that, like a boxing match. Like, do the shots hurt in the match? You feel them, but they don't hurt like they do after the match. When you're racing the car with all your brain firing off like that and having to react that quick. the only time they're gonna think of their heat is when all of a sudden they're like, I can't breathe. Like I like some it's gotten to an extreme that now it's what I'm focusing on. Those dudes don't notice a thing until like it becomes the thing they have to notice outside of driving that car.
I would say they notice it, but they choose to stick with it. It's not like they, oh, I don't notice it's happening. They absolutely notice. Because just a couple years
100% you
ago,
know it's happening, but are you reacting to the heat the same way that we're sitting in the stands going, man, it's hot? No, we're sitting there with the heat beating down on us and they're feeling heat, but you also have adrenaline pumping through your body the entire time. And one of the things adrenaline absolutely does is numb the other senses to the benefit of whatever you're focusing on. So I mean, yeah, they feel it, but that's the last thing they're focused on until someone is like they're like, I need water or I'm about to pass out or this is getting to an extreme that we can't drive the car like we need to.
Well, Keegan, that's a good point because I think about Qatar last year, Chase, and it was just super, super hot during that Grand Prix. And I know that after the race, I think like 15 around there drivers had to go get IVs, and I mean it was just bad. I remember seeing the cool down route after the race was over. They take the drivers into this room. They call it the cool down room, and last year it was known as the Max Verstappen podcast because he literally was in the top three. I mean, he won what, Chase, 20 races last year, and I
just about.
mean, I think there was only one race last year he wasn't on the podium. I think that was Singapore. He finished like fifth.
Yeah.
Just to
Um,
just
but
to back up a tiny bit, the Max, and you guys can fill in where I don't. Obviously, you're going to know more than I do. But Max Verstappen was kind of like at one point the up and coming young gunner that a lot of people had confidence in, but a lot of people doubted. And Lewis Hamilton was a guy that had won like 11 or a lot of world championships. He was a
7.
consecutive winner and he was just dominating the sport. It was his reign. And he's also just, you know, for take it as you will, he's very, very left leaning and very vocal about things like that. So he used his platform to just be that guy that had to bring that into everything that he did. And him and Max Verstappen had this face off, especially at the race we were at. Like they had this face off in the qualifying where Max flipped him off because he was getting too close to him, and then he ended up beating Lewis Hamilton by like that few tenths of a second for the race. And just to give some context behind what you guys are talking about, there's like a very passionate dispute between not only the teams and obviously fans, but like those two people individually in that sport. Now Lewis has fallen off from what you guys have described, but Max, it's now Max's reign and he's the one to beat. But yeah, that just to give a little background to who Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are, and feel free to, like I said, add where there it might be more relevant.
got it, Chase. You want me to take it?
You can go.
So, Keegan, that's really well said. You said it very, pretty much spot on. I mean, so Lewis Hamilton came into Formula One in 2007. And, when he was about 12, 13 years old, he was approached by Ron Dennis, who used to run McLaren F1, which is now run by Zach Brown. And so Lewis was, like all these guys, they at that age, he was in go-karts and he was just dominating. And so he actually went up to Ron Dennis and I mean, it's a cool story. He told him, hey, I'm going to drive one of your cars in the future. And Ron, was watching him and loved what he saw. So he actually signed Lewis as a teenager, a young teenager, to a contract, saying that one day he will drive one, a McLaren for McLaren at some point. And so anyway, fast forward to when Lewis is 22, they bring him into the team, and as a rookie, he was 1 point away from winning the world championship. And so, that's one thing you don't really see too often is these guys coming into Formula One on one of the top teams with one of the best cars, because you have to remember too, all these guys are phenomenal drivers. I think that there's, you know, two or three that are maybe a notch ahead of everybody else. But I mean, these are the 20 best drivers in the world. And so what I think a lot of people don't know is it really depends on what kind of equipment you have. because there's a certain formula, there's certain regulations that every team has to follow, and some teams um, build better cars than others, as we've seen with Red Bull, we've seen with Mercedes. And then as those regulations stay in place for a few years, these guys, all these teams have great engineers. And so they eventually catch up, which is what we're seeing now. And so, that's why Verstappen hasn't, he still had a phenomenal year. I would be shocked if he doesn't win the world championship. I mean, I think he's got it so in the bag. He just kind of has to show up and finish on the podium here and there, and I think he's got it in the bag. But we've seen a real drop off from the dominance that they have had from last year and the start of this year because all these other teams have caught up. And so going back to what I was talking about Lewis, he got into that role in a really good team with that year definitely the best car and almost won the world championship. So, I mean, he came in right off the bat and everyone knew he was a superstar. And then in 2008, he won his first title. And then McLaren, the regulations changed in 2009. And so McLaren fell behind the eight ball a little bit and it took them some time to catch up. So really the top team was Red Bull. That's when their dominance really started. Well, 2009, it was Braun Grand Prix, which that's another whole nother topic. But so moving forward from that era of regulations, it was really, Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull winning world championships. And, him and Fernando always had, some pretty crazy battles when Fernando was driving at Ferrari. And Formula One was really good back then. And then 2013, Lewis made kind of a controversial move at the time, which was he went to Mercedes and going from McLaren, who again, McLaren, well-established team, has all the resources, all the technology. The trajectory was looking great for them to be competing, but Lewis left and then replaced Michael Schumacher in 2013 at Mercedes. And so what was happening was in 2014, a huge regulation change was coming, not necessarily for the chassis. I think the chassis changed a little bit, but the big change was the engines. They went from a V8 to a V6 hybrid, and so it was definitely it was a big change in the regulations, and so um, I think Lewis had saw something that Mercedes was way ahead of the game building this type of engine versus everybody else. And so once 2014 hit and this new engine came out, I mean, him and his teammate at the time, Nico Rosberg, they were dominating everybody. Like it wasn't even fair because they had just built a much better engine than everybody else. I mean, they were out qualifying third and fourth place by a second and a half at some Grand Prix because they just had such a horsepower advantage.
which is
So needless to
significant.
say, it's crazy. And so needless to say, Lewis won the world championship in 2014, 2015, and then his teammate Rosberg beat him in 16, but barely. And then he retired right after that. And then they brought in Valtteri Bottas. And then 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, Lewis won all those. So he's a seven-time. He's won, he's got more podiums, which means he finished in the top three more. I mean, he's the most statistically, he's the greatest driver of all time statistically.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, along comes Max Verstappen, who, his father raced in Formula One, Yas, and he was a good driver. And so, it's funny, my sister, she's got a friend who she went to high school with, who actually is married to a guy that was coming through the karting ranks about the same time that Max was racing. And he even was talking to my dad. He was just like, look, there's this kid named just double. And dad's like, oh, that must be. And so anyway, that kid was in fact incredible. So he did what, Chase, like 1 year of F3, which is a couple of series below F1. And then they threw him in the Red Bull, like, or I'm sorry, in the Toro Rosso. It was Toro Rosso at the time, which is now RB.
Yeah.
But they put him in that car in 2015, and I mean he was incredible. He was 17 years old,
Which,
and then
fun fact, is illegal now in F1. Like, you
yeah,
can't come into F1 that young anymore.
yeah, and midway, was it midway through 2015 they put him in the Red Bull?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
He wasn't at Toro Rosso
he
long.
wasn't a Toro Rosso long at all. In his first race, he won.
Yeah.
So I mean, right
And
off the
then Red
bat,
Bull's like,
yeah,
do we
I
have
think we made the
something
right
here?
decision. And so, Red Bull's biggest disadvantage at that time was, I mean, they had a wonderful car because Adrian Newey, again, he's the best. He was building that car, but their problem was everybody else other than Mercedes was they were so down on horsepower. And so, like I mentioned earlier, as the years go on and regulations, these teams eventually catch up. And so Red Bull went with Honda, which, you know, let's talk about my man Fernando for a little bit. He went back to McLaren in 2015 after 5 years at Ferrari, and so he goes back to McLaren, and Honda builds an engine based on these specifications, and yeah, he that was not a good engine, not at all. And so anyway, Honda got out of F1 for a little bit. Then they came back with Red Bull, and they built just a fantastic engine this time. They got it right. And so then by about 2020, Max was challenging Lewis for wins. And mind you, at this time, Max is 22, 23 years old, and Lewis is, I mean, he's got all the championships and all the wins and everything. And then 2021, that's when the big battle came. And so by the time that we went to the race, they were in full force regarding this championship fight. And so, it was really cool for us to witness, really Max winning that race at Coda. I think not only the significance of, him eventually being world champion, and really Lewis and Mercedes dominating that track for so long, it was more, I think, significant in the fact that it was really a passing of the torch almost,
Yep.
because you had one legend in Lewis Hamilton who has dominated the sport for years, and then Max kind of taking his throne. So um, that really, I would say that race, it was now looking back, there was a lot of significance there because it wasn't only Max pretty much coming in and winning the race. It was also saying, "Hey, Mercedes, you don't dominate this track anymore. And by the way, I'm a future multi-world champion." So
Yep.
a lot of significance about that race that we got to see, and the fact that we got to see it in the fashion that we did get to see it, true blessing.
Absolutely. Yeah. 2021 was one of the best title fights Formula One has probably ever seen. So, and
No
it
doubt
was just
about it.
So
really cool
there's
to
the
Derek's point.
context.
Yep. Being able to see that in person for a race during that season. I mean, because Max and Lewis butted heads the entire season. Them, Max flipping Lewis off because Lewis cut Max off in practice and just, I don't know. The whole thing was just a really cool culmination. Really fun experience overall at Coda 3 years ago, which I'm still wrapping my head around. It was already three
It's
years
crazy.
ago. And
And it was funny, Chase. I don't mean to cut you off, but one thing I thought of, with Formula One still being relatively new to, people here in the States, um, I actually feel bad for everybody because, that was one of the first years I think that it really took off with its popularity due to Drive to Survive because it was right
yeah,
after COVID. They had a full schedule. And then, everybody's probably watching like, wow, that was incredible. That's one of the greatest, like, sporting seasons I've ever seen of any sport. And then here comes 2022 and 2023, where Max just,
just dominate.
literally drove circles around everybody else. So, and then everyone's like, wow, we just saw one of the like greatest, like, seasons in sports we've ever seen. And then we go to 22, 23, where it really wasn't much,
It
but
wasn't, yeah. As a Red
no.
Bull and Max fan, I got bored. Like I love
Yeah.
Max winning, but I was just like, I'm bored. This
But
isn't.
you know what? I think again with now teams catching up, you're going to start. I think you're already seeing it this year. I mean, we've had Red Bull's obviously won races, Ferrari's won races, Mercedes has won races, McLaren has won races. So the fact that you're seeing the big teams all winning, that's a big deal. So because last year it
Yep.
was just Red Bull was the only, or Sainz won one race. That's right.
Yep.
But
It's-
it's just, and I think next year you'll see kind of the same thing. So,
Yep.
and then we go
We're
into a new regulations in 2026.
Yep, we're definitely heading in the right direction per se for actual competition, which is always a good thing. We don't want
Yep.
domination in any sport unless it's me playing video games and I want to destroy everybody. I hate losing so much. But
Yeah, like college football, right?
don't even get me started.
That's the
Oh,
hardest game, bro.
it's so difficult.
It's
Yeah,
so hard.
Keegan and I were talking. We need to get you on Space Marine 2.
What's that?
Look it up.
Okay,
It's a
I'll look it
brand new
up.
game that just came out, and you need to get it and play it with us.
I
Jesse
watched
got
some
it.
videos on Warhammer 40K, and
Yep,
I mean, it's a really good game, and
super
Well, send
cool.
me my check and I'll go buy it.
You got it,
I'm
Keegan.
sure you got it.
Oh
We're not
man.
including
Well,
that in the package.
yeah, we'll talk about that some other time. But yeah,
That will be
get it.
a
It's a good
signing
game.
bonus once you come on
Exactly.
as a permanent guest
A
during
permanent
guest
guest.
A
times.
permanent guest.
I like that one.
Permanent
We'll,
guest
we'll
during
we'll start
guest
making
times.
shirts that
When
say
it's
that
time
have
for a guest,
Thotify on
you
it.
are the permanent guest. Never, no
Hey,
one
but
else.
you
This
know,
is a historic episode. It's just you, only you. For the rest of the future, it's only going to be Derek.
hey,
Yep.
when the viewership goes down though, you may want to take the permanent guest label off.
We will protect the company.
We should, yeah. Whatever's in the
As you
best
should.
interest of the
I'm
company.
kidding. I'm kidding. I don't even know what I'm joking about at this point, honestly. But either way, I think it's 9 o'clock here in Texas, and once you hit your 30s, that's pretty late. So I am 31, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, Derek, man, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Your knowledge of racing, you were like a history book of
A
racing.
wizard.
You need to put that to use in some way, shape, or form outside of just talking about it, because you could go on a game show and they'd be like, when did this wheel fall off the car? And be like, hey, this race, 19 something, and it was because the pressure in the right wheel was deflated by the left turn and the suspension was off.
It was
Yeah, you got some knowledge around it,
0.075 psi lower than permissible levels.
right?
That's
So, but yeah,
right.
thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah,
Hey, thanks guys for having me. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it. And again, quite the honor to be the first permanent guest on here. So
absolutely.
hopefully you guys will have me back soon.
That didn't come out right. Permanent guest would just mean
Permanent
another
guest.
member. I was trying to make up something clever. It came out stupid. So
We're
either way,
gonna
that's how
get
I
most
like
stuff
it.
comes out.
we're gonna get Thotify shirts made for all of our guests that say permanent guest.
Permanent. No, I'm the only permanent guest. Come on.
No, everyone's gonna get one, and they'll just be an oxymoron because a permanent and guest mean the opposite thing. That's great. I
But
made
you'll
that up.
receive the first one.
I
Yes,
made
I
that
want
up.
the first one at least. I want the first one. And I
Absolutely.
want it autographed by both of you.
Oh, we can I don't know.
Is that too
That's gonna be
much? Too
pretty
much to
hard to
ask?
get to us. Pretty hard to
Fresh
get to
merch
us.
coming
Just go
soon.
through our team network to get to us
Okay.
to see if we
I'll talk
can.
to your people.
Yeah. Have your people talk to our many people and we'll make it happen.
Definitely. Definitely will.
But awesome. Well, thank you again, Derek, for joining. We had a blast of a conversation talking about F1, time at Coda. We'll definitely be having you on again, talking about all kinds of other stuff because I know there's a lot of shared stories and experiences that we can definitely talk about in the future. So appreciate the audience for tuning in for this week's episode. If you have questions, don't ever ask them. We're not going to answer them. If you want to share this, just don't. It's opposite day, so do. And yeah, we look forward to next week's episode. And once
Or we
again,
don't.
thank you, first permanent guest Derek, for joining.
Thank you
It was a
both.
good time.
See
Yep.
you guys.
Appreciate you guys. This was a blast.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.